Here's something that is a complaint, but also just one of those abnormalities that comes with the Cars universe. Mater goes to the bar to get something to eat.
Wasabi.
He mistakes wasabi for pistachio ice cream. He knows what ice cream is, but that implies dairy exists, but the cows are tractors.
Huh.
I don't
Just
like
saying.
this.
How do you milk a tractor?
Where are the udders? The other, the exhaust pipe?
I'm lactose intolerant.
Is the exhaust pipe poop?
A tractor teat.
Tractor teeth.
Hello there.
Don't have a good day. Have a great day.
Talk to me, Goose.
I'm gonna steal the Declaration of Independence.
Why so serious? Squirrel! I could do this all day.
Are you watching closely?
Welcome, everybody, to the One Night Film Podcast. I'm your host, Seth Mossberg, and I got my fiance, if that has not been made clear yet, Ellie, and my best man, Josh. It's kind of all in the podcast here.
Yeah.
It's coming up fast, and I don't want to dwell anymore on wedding planning because we're talking about Cars today. Such a nostalgic movie for me, and for me, it's Cars 1. Probably because that's the only DVD we had. Not the only DVD. We watched it every night because we had nothing else. No,
you had VeggieTales too, right?
we have so many VeggieTales DVDs.
Oh my word, I've seen the collection. It's impressive.
The Cars movie, the original, was very nostalgic, and I think my mom would attest to me as like a 4-year-old boy saying, "Can we watch the Talking Cars movie?" Because you have to say the Talking Cars because the Cars movie, when you're so young, is not very specific because there's many Cars movies because kids think cars are cool. Surprisingly, there's going to be some arguments when we talk about this because as we talk about all 3 movies, there are differences that I already know I am in the minority of. So maybe I should have had somebody else on my side, a 4th member, but I'm also the host, so I get twice the amount of say.
Okay. That's how this works.
But we'll start off with Cars 1. I think I kind of hinted at it already. It's a fun kids movie because cars go zoom, zoom fast. It's the exact same reason why I like Fast and Furious. But I actually think Cars has more life lessons than Fast and Furious because it was kind of in the era of, you don't really expect to make a sequel rather than today where you kind of are expected to make a sequel with your movie or make a 5-hour-long movie cut into 2 parts or whatever. The Cars movie is like a standalone, perfect kids movie with nothing but good messages.
Perfect.
Not perfect. It's no. It's not the perfect movie. It's the perfect kids movie where it's a lot of different colors. It's a lot of eye candy for that age, but then it also gives the adults something to chew on and to think about and to glory over because it's actually really well written. I've heard some people don't really like Owen Wilson as Lightning. I think that they're inseparable only because you see Lightning's face and you hear the voice. And it's funny because Owen Wilson has become a meme recently just because of wow and all that.
Wow.
And we were watching Cars 3 and he said, wow. And we were like, he said the thing.
He said it like 6 times.
And it's good. There's not a lot to critique about it, but I do want to let you guys, what do you guys think of the first Cars movie as it stands alone? Because you can't really compare it to the future movies. You compare future movies to the previous movies. What do you think?
Ladies first.
I can't critique it. I physically cannot critique it. I love that movie too much. I grew up watching it. I'm sure you can come up with all the things that are cinematically wrong with it.
No, I can't. It looks beautiful.
At least with the first 2 movies. I love those movies and they're so fun and they're so wholesome and it's just, I can't come up with it. The music too. Like I'm always advocating for the soundtracks, but the soundtrack of all those movies are just gold.
Oh, yeah. Lightning's ready.
This is the best song to just crank up in the car.
Dude, this opening is just so good. I don't care that it doesn't look real. We'll get to that when we talk about Cars 3. But the reveal of the main character is so good.
It's clean.
I can see a lot of the things that they did to cheat the system, as in from an animation standpoint, because I have a degree in animation, to make the crowd look. The crowd is very basic.
Dots.
Pretty much, yeah. But it still gets the scope of it. One thing that I think Pixar did early on was play to their weaknesses. You usually hear play to your strengths, but they played to their weaknesses. They made Toy Story first because they realized that all they could make in 3D was plastic looking figures. And so they made Toy Story because they're like, oh, well, then we don't have to have any humans in it. We'll just make a movie around toys. Same with Cars. They were like, okay, well, we can also get reflections really good. So why don't we make a movie about all our characters being metal? There you go. You got Cars. And even just the character designs, how they weren't rigid. Like sometimes you see this with Lego, whether it's a stop motion, fully animated, bendy, like the Lego Ninjago shows, or somewhere in the middle where it's like the Lego movies, where they're pseudo real, pseudo action, where they still kind of have that you can't bend the figures. But anyways, Cars makes everything seem like it could be real, even though it can't. And I think some people have tried to make real cars to do like the all the hinges with their wheels to look like hands, and it's mechanically impossible, but it could be possible.
It stretches with imagination a bit. Cars is iconic. And I remember watching it for the first time, and I just wanted to be Tow Mater so bad. So I like slowly downloaded his personality into mine and pissed my sisters off. They were so annoyed because I would go around and be like, Tow Mater, just annoying the crap out of them.
Well, and today you look like Old McDonald with your overalls. So
yeah, yep.
You'd be a Billy
I'm
already.
not an overalls person, but today I am.
You are today.
I am today.
I think if Tow Mater was a person, he would wear overalls.
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah.
And they would constantly have
Yeah.
a hole like right here, so he'd only be wearing like one strap, you know?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's his one headlight.
Oh, I didn't even put that together. Hang on. No, that's genius. That is his one headlight.
Why was Cars good? I feel like I just want to jump straight to that because Cars 2 and 3 have a lot more to talk about. If we can just kind of accept that Cars 1 is really good, why is it good? And move forward from there.
It's simple. It's not a very complex story, and it plays pretty basic cards like really, really well because it's got a generic, very haughty guy that's full of himself, gets humbled, doing something that is completely against what he's used to. He has to do something very slow rather than being super, super fast. That's him pulling the road fixer, tar maker, whatever you want to call it. I forget the name of the machine. Bessie? Okay, I thought it was Betsy, and I just didn't want to get it wrong. But he's pulling that, and that's got to be slow. But he's fast. He's a race car. So that's changing him. And then he gets to his final race, and he lets go of what he was so proud of. It's a very simple story. I've seen it in many other movies, but this one just makes it Cars. And it's a classic because of that.
And I think it's something we relate to. It's kind of a universal experience of like, you're on top of the world until you're not, and then you got to figure it out. And I kind of think about the Israelites where they're like, oh, we're fine now. Thanks, God. We're done. And then they try to do things on their own. And then all of a sudden they're like, crap, God, we need you. We're broken. We can't do it all by ourselves. And this is kind of a picture of that, even though it's not a Christian movie.
Man, where do we hear that in our own lives, maybe? Oh,
No.
Yeah. Not me.
I can do it on my
think
own.
we can do it on our own?
We're fine.
I could land the plane.
I can take it. Yes, you're right. It's a simple story. The character development is actually really good. And honestly, there's not a lot of characters that have a lot of character development. Not just Lightning, but Doc goes through character development. Cocky...
Nothing.
Josh.
Keep going.
You can't.
Clip it. Somebody clip it.
I have the editing power. Lightning is cocky, but Doc is just as stubborn. The moment when they're in Doc's garage and Lightning kind of claps back at him after Doc is like, they quit on me. And then he's like, but you didn't give him a chance. And Doc is like, yeah, you gotta get out. Get off my lawn. He is also just as salty. And that's kind of the point, is that they're building each other. And even when it comes around in Cars 3, where Doc is telling Smokey how Lightning is the best part of his life, being a mentor to him. And usually in the hero's journey, which is the basic formulaic thing that you can find almost in pretty much every story ever. studied in film class, is that the mentor figure usually is the wiser one. When in this case, yes, Doc is wiser. He has many years of experience that he shares with Lightning, but he also has his flaws as well, which makes him an amazing mentor. I think that shows, even though they're cars, the realness of being a person and showing that even if somebody's wiser with more wisdom, acting it out is another thing. And Doc is just always, he's not with the team of Radiator Springs. He never really gets what Lightning is doing and these relationships he's making. And even that character development of Lightning slowly growing closer to these people, I think it's really shown when he's the best line in all of Cars, when he flings into flows and says, Doc has 3 piston cups.
He did what in his cups? I quote that daily. I quote it daily.
The Christianese version would be pouring himself out. Like, he's telling them what he's feeling instead of just being, you guys don't know who I am. I'm somebody and you're nobodies. And that dynamic, that he's kind of being real with them for once. And then right after that, he has his drive with Sally to kind of make him literally take it slow, even though they're going.
Which, by the way, is a beautiful scene. That whole scene is just gorgeous.
Yeah. I think the way that Cars thrives is with mainly those 2 characters who grow and develop. And I think something that modern movies often forget to write into their character story is, how do the characters grow? How do they change from the beginning of the story to the end? Like, everyone likes to hate on Captain Marvel, but like, what does she learn by the end? That she has real power within her, that as a team they can work together. It's very different. And Lightning needs to, through the whole movie, humble himself and say, yes, I can't do it on my own. I need a crew. I need a pit crew. I need somebody who knows better than me to teach me. I need to listen to other people. And that's the whole last race, the final part of the movie, where he's using the techniques taught to him by Mater, by Doc, through the drift scene. I know that's not, it gets me every single time I watch it. Dust Cloud, when he's drifting, does not look real at all, but it still somehow is beautiful. Like, it's just kind of clumpy, gooey visual mess because they couldn't really do like a smoke simulation, but it still looks really good because like the orange dust with his red sliding across the screen just as a wipe is so gorgeous. And with Guido having the most amazing pit stop of all time. And then finishing off with him stopping before the finish line, realizing that there's more to life than winning this Piston Cup. He did what in his cup?
He did what in his cup?
To go back and get the king. I think every time we say Piston Cup in this episode, I'm going to put in Mater. He did what in his cup?
Please do. Okay. So I disconnected there just for a second because we're actually in a storm, and I literally got back just to hear you say Piston Cup. That's it. That's all I needed.
Perfect.
So if I randomly disconnect, don't piss in my cups, please.
You can't even make the joke on that one.
Nope.
He tried. I think there's a few nitpicks that I can have with Cars. One, like, why didn't Sally go to the race? Like, that just seems like an odd choice to make. Why did Sheriff go to the race and not Sally? I feel like Sally could have been a good cheerleader there. But besides that and a few others, it's just the only one I can think of off the top of my head. I really think Cars is a great movie. I've been watching kids' movies now with the mentality of, like, would I let my kids watch this when I have them? And it's definitely up there. Usually the older ones are pretty safe. And this one, I think all the Cars movies are just top tier. Just let the kids laugh at it. And speaking of laughter, it's time for the hot take of the day. Woo!
I love the second one. Say what you want.
I hate the second one.
The second one is my favorite.
Oh, okay. I have like half a page dedicated to Cars 2. So, just saying. This is the point. This is the part of the show where we can, he's strapping in. This is the part of the show where we can start comparing movies, because you can compare Cars 2 to Cars 1. And even, I still think that any comparisons between 2 and 3 have to come when we're talking about 3, because you can't just look forward to a movie that hasn't come out yet when you're watching Cars 2. You watch them in order, you compare them to what you've seen. I understand why you like Cars 2. It is a fun
It's
movie.
hilarious.
It looks great. It's Despicable Me humor, though, I think. Not quite complete bathroom jokes like Despicable Me is.
Don't stoop Mater down that low.
I know you guys could talk a lot about how much you like it.
I have a confession to make. As I've thought about it, I'm going to say this very carefully.
Okay.
I admit I was wrong. Cars 2 is not a good movie, but I still love it. I don't care if it's bad. It is bad. It's poorly written. It doesn't fit with the other two movies, especially after watching Cars 3. I'm like, it does not fit with the other two. It is kind of a fever dream. But it is the best. Stop. It is the best fever dream I have ever seen, and I love it. And maybe it could have been a short, and maybe it would have been fine. But I love the whole movie, and literally, like the twist at the end, where it was the oil guy the entire time, and like. It is a fun kids movie, and I would have never seen that coming as a kid, and I loved it every single time I watched it, and I will die on the hill of saying I love the movie, even if it's trash, but I admit that it's not well written, and it does not fit with the other two.
You are right.
Okay.
Josh.
Okay, I can admit that the writing isn't the strongest, but it is still the best of the three. It doesn't need the writing because here's my take. Of a movie named Cars, the second one is the most about cars out of any of the other ones.
It's the cariest car movie ever.
It's the cariest car movie. And
We're losing
what
it.
more do you need? It's explosions, it's laughter, it's Tomater being Tomater. It is thoroughly enjoyable to the audience that it was given to. And if you're thinking about being a kid and watching a movie, you're going to pick the second one before you pick the first one. Because who doesn't love cars? Who doesn't love spies? Boom. Car spies.
I am willing to admit that it was probably made to sell merchandise, and it was probably made geared towards kids just having a goofy time. But I was a kid when it came out, and I loved it.
I'm not even a kid, and I just want a goofy time, and I'll watch that movie.
I rewatched it recently. I still enjoyed it.
I had a hoot and a holler. 2 hoots and 3 hollers, actually, because that's how much I like this one.
Josh, you make me so mad.
I'm sorry.
You are objectively wrong. Not about your opinion. You can be my camera died. Hold off on the enthusiasm of this rant because my freaking batteries don't last longer than
You got disconnected because even the camera knows that Cars 2 is so good.
It's great. It's great.
So we can talk about it while he's gone. He'll probably cut it all out.
here.
But
You can have your opinion, of course. And I actually really agree with what Ellie said. Not just because she's my fiance. I actually liked your breakdown.
Josh, you made him have a breakdown.
I'll die on this hill.
You said Cars 2 is the most Cars a Cars movie can be. And you are objectively wrong. Do you want to know why? I don't care if you want to know why, because I'm about to roast this man to yesterday. Because all the other movies have locations that look like they're made for cars. When you start touring the world, you should be able to see that same pattern throughout the world. All they are in Tokyo, in London, wherever the second location was, I think it was Italy, they are just in our world as cars. There are sidewalks and fences. And I know I have more things. There's phone booths. There's glasses with beer. This one just doesn't seem like it was made with cars in mind. They just made our world with lower tables. They have sinks. Why do cars have sinks? And I'm not saying you can't find other examples, but Cars 2 is the one I cannot watch where I'm always looking for, why does that exist? Why this doesn't make sense. Cars 2 is just our world with cars in it. Whereas all the other two movies are cars in a Cars world where I don't even care if it's like the apocalypse where cars took over and humanity doesn't exist. It's like there's clouds that are shaped like cars. There's mountain ranges that are shaped like cars. That's the beauty of the Cars movie. And Cars 2 doesn't feel like that. That's my gripe. That's where I know that you are wrong, because you can see it in Cars 2. It has nothing to do with the story. It has nothing to do with the character development. It's just objectively true.
Babe, it's not that deep. It's not that deep.
It's not that deep.
They didn't take the same care as they did craft. Like, they didn't have to make car-shaped mountain ranges, but they did for the first and third movie. And they just seem to throw that all out the window for Cars 2. That is something that lets you go of the immersiveness, in my opinion. And that's my opinion.
Okay.
You can have your opinion. But this is a battle of the opinions.
Okay. Here's my argument for how Cars 2 is the most Cars of the three. All the other ones are about racing or speed, whereas Cars 2 is about the make and model of cars, where ones are lemons, they have oil changes, and the characters and the plot is driven by them being cars. Whereas objectively in any other race setting, one car is going to be faster than the other, and it's not anything about personality that they've got. Lightning McQueen could go through the biggest training montage, but he's still going to be an 8-cylinder engine. So cars have nothing to do with the racing in the first and third movie. So the second one, where there's oil mentioned, where there's like this whole detective case about them being lemons, and then that's more about cars and it's in the plot. That's why it's more Cars than 1 and 3. 1 and 3 are about racing, not cars.
I'm letting you speak because it's nice. Apparently. Cars 3 is about Lightning not being able to match the speed of newer, better developed cars. He is literally an older model, and that's why he cannot compete, and he has to come to terms with that, not only as a character, but as a literal car.
Fair enough.
I see what you're saying. I completely say what you're saying, but you can't say that Cars 3 has nothing to do with cars.
Fair enough.
Obviously it does. I'm not saying I'm not putting words in your mouth. I'm not putting a straw man on you.
Fair enough. Cars 3 is good. It's more about cars, but Cars 1 is the least cars of the three. I think that's my point.
That is true. I think that is the one movie that's probably why it's very universally loved, is because, like you said, it's simple. It's a simple story that you could probably copy paste with a couple changes. A couple jokes don't land, like the Piston Cup.
He did what in his cup?
But I could see a world where it's the same story with a hotshot racer who literally he's like yes, he can be in a car, but like he just ends up in a town. I think now that I'm thinking about it, 7 Days in Utopia is probably a pretty accurate movie. You probably haven't seen it, but it's about a golfer who ends up in a rundown old town and has to learn a life lesson before he goes back and plays in a golf championship. It's something similar. I don't like you saying that Cars 3 has nothing to do with being a car, but also you're right in saying that.
That was strong.
You're also right in saying that the all-in-all storyline, the lemons and the being run down, that is a part of the story. Just be careful with, I should hear this too. The proclamations you make that often are a little crazy. That's me too. Like I have had a number of people online not like me for what I say.
I'm ready.
But I've taken that upon myself.
Someone can shoot me.
Just to give you guys a chance to cool down, can we talk about oil for a minute? Because I'm still really confused. Is it food? Is it waste? Is it...
Oh my word.
Like, what is oil? What is the equivalent of oil? What is it supposed to be?
I don't know. Because I think it's supposed to be food. Because in Cars 1, right before they go on their drive, they have gas pumps. And that's how Sally gasses him up. She puts the gas pump down and fills him with gas. But everyone else is drinking oil. And then they say, like, go get a quart at Flo's or something. Like, I think that's
so
food.
So is oil alcoholic and gas is like water?
I know people have tried to come up with the anatomy of cars and all that, but I don't know.
How are baby cars made? That's what I want to know. Don't keep this in.
We don't talk about that. We don't talk about baby cars.
Are there baby cars? There are baby cars. They're kids.
There are baby cars.
There are baby cars in there. And then the headlights in the second where like she doesn't have a body and then her eyes open and it's actually the headlights. That
we don't talk
out.
about that. That is the most terrifying scene of that entire. I don't know why it exists. It's horrible.
Well, okay.
Don't like it.
The other thing, I referenced the Robots movie. If you've ever seen the Robots movie where they make a baby and they have like a baby kit that they build the baby. It's a really funny movie. It's another one where them being robots actually makes sense because there's so many jokes written to it. I remember the build a baby box, like they finish constructing the baby.
We wanted a boy, right?
Yeah. And then he takes, son, this won't hurt a bit. Whang!
Wow! Just starts crying.
This won't hurt a bit, son.
It's so good. I love
Such a
that
good movie. It's a great movie.
Here's something that is a complaint, but also just one of those abnormalities that comes with the Cars universe. Mater goes to the bar to get something to eat.
Wasabi.
He mistakes wasabi for pistachio ice cream. He knows what ice cream is, but that implies dairy exists, but the cows are tractors.
Huh.
I don't
Just
like
saying.
this.
How do you milk a tractor?
Where are the udders? The exhaust pipe?
I'm lactose intolerant.
Is the exhaust pipe poop?
A tractor teat.
Tractor teeth.
Ellie, I thought you were asking about gas and oil because of All in All. I don't know exactly what All in All is supposed to be. It's supposed to be better fuel, but if this is supposed to be like his master plan is that electric cars will rule the world, or that what was his plan? Like just better
His
fuel?
plan was to sabotage alternative fuels so that his oil company would win.
That's right, because he had a behind the scenes under the table oil company that would then profit separate from All in All. All in All would
It's
fail.
so intricate.
So intricate. I do have a question. This is what I was going to start off the Cars 2 segment with. Please allow me to demonstrate. When you look up Cars 2 poster, who is at the front of every single poster? This is why I don't like how Cars 2 is handled. If you look at every single Cars 2 poster, Lightning McQueen is sitting a little bit in front. This looks like fan art. That doesn't count. Every single, like even this one, they're together, yes, but he's still in front of Mater. They somehow forgot to make Lightning the main character. And that's where I think Cars 2 would have thrived even more and been well molded into the franchise instead of the off-put one that half people like and half people don't like. The same storyline could have been followed. You still could have had Lightning go to the World Grand Prix and deal with these things like Mater getting distracted and spies messing up the whole thing, but it could be a B plot. You can even still show all of the spy stuff, just not as front and center. And I know I don't want to just harp on my hate for it. And again, I don't hate it. It is fun to watch. But I think that movie could have been featuring Lightning's prime. We get a glimpse at it in Cars 3 right at the beginning before Jackson Storm comes in. But I think this could have been his peak movie or his peak racing movie. And I argue Cars is about racing and not just about cars. And you can't just call it racing because I don't think that describes it as well in a title format. But it is about racing. It's just less influenced in the second one. I think Lightning is a little bit out of character in how Cars 2 ended up, but he still could have had the same beats of getting frustrated with Mater. I don't think he should be as ashamed of Mater as he was in the movie because he's still best friends with him. Yes, best friends can have falling out, but I think he was too hard on Mater for what we got, and he could have been a little bit more helpful with that. That's my argument because they realized what they did after they made Cars 2 and they went back to following Lightning. They marketed it with Lightning front and center and then made him the side character. It's less about bringing a side character and the comedy relief to be the main character. It's about pushing aside what should have been the main character, or at least the co-main character. And I think when it comes to not liking the movie, I remember my mom never really liked it, but not because of like a nitpicky cinema taste for the exquisite like I might have. She didn't like it because it really put Mater down, and that is the driving force behind the movie, but that is what McMissile sees him as. He just sees him as the stupid one, and he thinks that he's putting on a show to blend in, but it almost seems like he's being punished for being who he is. And that is the point of the movie. First off, I do want to bring it all around to say whose movie is it when the posters look like that. But everyone else is the one who goes through character development and not Mater. The main character is supposed to be the one who goes through character development, the one who changes and who learns something about themselves. And I don't think Mater is in a position to do that. Mater is great the way he is in Cars 1 and in Cars 3. And yes, he is the same character in Cars 2, but he doesn't grow anywhere. Everyone else is the problem and doesn't see him for who he is. And I think modern Disney movies have kind of felt like that's the message they're preaching, is that you're fine just the way you are. Everyone else needs to accept you. And I don't think that was the point of Cars 2. It might be the point of modern kids movies. And I think Turning Red had a big theme about that, where the girl was the one who was perfectly normal and her mom was the one who went through the character development. That's not how stories should be written. Lightning, McMissile, Holly, those characters went through the development to accept Mater for who he is, being the goofy side character, the comedy relief. That is his part. That is his role. And that's not a bad thing. And I think they saw it as a bad thing. And I've yapped for too long.
In the first movie, he kind of overcame his pride, and then in the second movie, he was prideful again, which, I mean, I guess that's depraved nature, and that's going to happen, but it's just kind of a bummer to see him still be really prideful and ashamed of Mater. But he might actually be the main character, and it might be a screen time issue, because I think your major gripe is that Mater gets the most screen time. And I do not have a degree in animation, but I'm like, the way I see it is these guys just made this, like, they got so wrapped up in this spy story they were writing, they're like, this is insane, we're going to write this all out, and they're like, crap, this is a kid's movie and it's already an hour long, and they're like, okay, wrap it up. And I'm wondering if they missed out on it because they got too pulled into that side story.
I do think that Cars 2 is a full-length Mater's Tall Tales. They had great success with Mater's Tall Tales. I think they're hilarious. I even went back and watched The Ghost Light, which is the bonus feature from the first movie. That's hilarious. I don't think it should have been. I think that's what they were going for, is that they're like, oh, people love Mater's Tall Tales, let's make a full movie about him. And I don't think it landed the same way.
Yeah. I definitely think that Cars 2 did suffer from just poor planning. PP for short. We're not going to shorten that. It did suffer from poor planning, and it's definitely seen in a lot of movies nowadays fall short to that because they get way too caught up in this great side story like Ellie was talking about. Did you just ka-chow us?
I found the monster trucks.
Oh.
Ka-chow. But Ellie, you made a great point that it does feel like they got caught up in this, what was supposed to be kind of like a side plot again, or I guess the main plot, and then there was supposed to be more of the side plot with McQueen, but they just made that side plot the main plot and then just stuck with that. It definitely does feel like that because there's a lot of screws loose or a lot of bolts loose in this plot, but I still absolutely love it. It's near and dear to my heart because it's one of the first movies that I saw in theaters, actually. So I think that's why it's pedestaled on mine, but it's got a few kinks about it that I think could get fixed. Not that they would fix it now, but...
It's a perfectly fine kids movie, like I said. It's still goofy. I think one of the concerns like my mom had was like, what message do you get out of it? And I think it's just what I explained earlier. It feels like it's accept others the way they are. And yes, we want to love people where they're at, but with Christ, we don't want them to stay there. We always want to be growing and changing. Hopefully, every 5 to 10 years, you look back on your previous 5 to 10 years and you're like, man, I was a different person. That's great. Hopefully.
I was going to say, I still stand by, I think the main message of all three movies is overcoming pride, and it's Lightning overcoming pride in different ways. And like I said, I think it's a screen time issue of like, yeah, they put too much emphasis on Mater's storyline, but I still think the message of that story is that McQueen was ashamed of his friend and he was trying to make his friend someone he wasn't for the sake of his own image. And
that's well put.
First movie, he was prideful because of his fame. And then the third movie, he's prideful because he has to give up this title that that has become his identity. And I just think they all kind of followed that message.
And another argument I had, which again, I'm running out of steam for hating on Cars 2 because I do understand it's a good movie. Think about the ending.
I'm sure
Cars
there are
1.
others. You're going to get comments. You'll feel very validated.
Oh, yes.
Think about the ending of Cars 1 versus Cars 2. The heartfelt ending to Cars 1 is 1,000 times better than a villain reveal that I don't remember what I thought of it the first time. It makes sense. It's not like it doesn't. The villain reveal doesn't make sense. It just hits different. Both the heartfelt ending to Lightning giving up a piston cup to even in Cars 3. There's both Cruz's victory at the end and Lightning's crash at the beginning. Both of those get you feeling a lot more than I really ever felt in Cars 2, and that might be a personal preference. But I think the meaning and the story beats behind it tell a lot about a movie.
Bars.
I do want to share something cool that is a fun fact of the day. That's our One Night Film Podcast fun fact!
We should have theme music for the fun facts. A little jingle.
I know, I should find some. This is the Tokyo party scene right before the first race. These are the different national releases for the same movie. Obviously, it's Cars 2, but it's different national releases. So, obviously, they changed the third car for each national release for I believe their top racer of that nation, which I think is great because it originally was Jeff Gordon or Jeff Corvette, which was probably really great 10 years ago. When did this movie come out?
2011.
Really? Or did it say that? Did it say that at the top of the title?
Yeah.
Okay. No, it was 2011. It's 13 years old. And
How old were you, Josh?
7.
Baby.
You're older than I thought you were.
So yeah, putting other characters for that position to make it, oh, that's the guy I root for because he's the best racer in my country or whatever. That was really cool. I also think that the second car, Lewis Hamilton, learned his lines in all the different languages, and that's why he was the other consistent car there, is because he actually learned his lines, kind of like how Vin Diesel learned I am Groot in like 50 different languages and did the voice acting for all of it. Yeah, I think that's a cool fun fact.
That must be really hard for him.
Yo soy am Groot.
Yo soy am Groot.
Yo soy. Yes. Yo soy am Groot.
I am Groot.
I think we need to watch this teaser trailer.
Oh my.
Still gives me chills.
I remember seeing that.
Why did that give me goosebumps? Not even fair.
This is the frustrating part I have. That teaser trailer, beautiful. They never consistently followed that style for the rest of the movie. I still think that Cars 3 is the most realistic looking movie, but that teaser trailer looked filmed. And I hate that they didn't keep that up. If they had kept that same vibe going, that kind of dark and gritty, everything's dirty, everything is like foggy and lit, I wish that would have been it. It wasn't. Yeah. Which is fine. I just think that teaser trailer is one I can still go back and watch and get chills from, because it doesn't need words. It's just straight up, this is your childhood being crushed. Anyways, on that note, I do think that Cars 3, like I said, is the most realistic looking one. Frozen 2 also suffered from this. I say suffered because when you compare the sequels to their original, so Cars 1 and 2, and then Frozen, and probably some others, those are just the ones I've noticed them in, the environments look filmed with the animated cartoon characters inside them. It is a little bit of a disconnect, because if you make something live action, you make it more believable that it is. When you make a live action Moana, like they're planning on in the next couple years, they're not going to have the ability to make the shape-shifting Maui be as believable as when he was animated, because you bring down the bar of relaxing the rules of the universe. You have more concrete rules because you are now in live action, whereas with animated, you're almost free to do whatever you want and set whatever rules you want. And yes, you can write a story with those universal rules that you can just change on a whim. But especially when it comes to visuals, believe me, I have a degree in animation. I had to throw that in there. The landscapes look flawless when it comes to the standard of filmed. And when you have these cartoon characters stuck in the middle of it, there's a disconnect that just doesn't always work. I still think like the scene that was supposed to replicate Life is a Highway didn't work because it wasn't Life is a Highway, but I think it did work where it looked amazing. Whenever you couldn't see Mac's face, made it seem like it was real. And most of the times he was driving away. So things like that I can't really criticize. They were kind of flexing on, look how good we can make this. But I think things like that need to stick to a level of cartoon realism rather than real realism.
Have you seen Space Jam?
That is different because Space Jam uses the idea of cartoon characters in a real world as the driving force of, like, you know, all the stretchy limbs, all of the wacky, what's it called? Is it Hammer? I should know this from Into the Spider-Verse. There's like the little, or Across the Spider-Verse, there's like the little box that pops up that says, this is what it means. It means that they can pull objects out of an infinitely big bag or something.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Like note bubbles?
Hammer time?
Hammer time.
Well, it was
Space
from the
time?
Note Bubbles.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know how I'm gonna find this. It's gonna bug me. Hammer Space. It's Hammer Space is the word for it. So yeah, that's my transition. So yeah, what do you guys think of Cars 3?
I don't like it as much because I really like Lightning McQueen and I want him to be great all the time. But that's what makes Cars 3 good, is it's swallowing your pride and realize that you're never going to always be in your tip-top shape. Times move on. Other people grow while you start to fade away. It's a very Ecclesiastes type of movie, if that makes sense, where stuff is going to wilt and decay. Everything's meaningless. Just quit, basically.
Well, he's not giving up.
Yeah, he's not giving up. He's not giving up.
It is interesting to see both sides of Lightning's career. Initially, his pride was about, well, I think that is Lightning's problem, and you got it right. It's still a Cars 2 thing where Cars 1, he thinks he's hot stuff, and he thinks he knows all the tricks and doesn't need any help. His growth is realizing he needs help, but he's still kind of a hothead. In Cars 2, he thinks that he needs to keep his brand up. Mater is making him look bad, and so on and so forth. In Cars 3, he is still feeling like he should be on top of his game, and he doesn't realize his time has come. The Grim Reaper has come, in some sense, to claim his career, at least, to really tell him he's done. And that's tough. I think that's why it is the most grown up of all the movies, not only visually, because animation changes over the course of 15 years, but it is a deeper meaning, the deepest out of all of the movies, because it's about letting go and about loss, not just loss of a race, but loss of who you were meant to be. That is why I argue that Cars 3 is all about being about cars. Obviously, they all are. Josh thinks Cars 2 is all about it. But like, Lightning was made to be a race car. You are made for a certain part of the Cars world. However that happens, which we won't get into. Each vehicle is made for a tool. Mater is made to tow people. Others are a little bit more ambiguous, like, what is a Porsche made for? Sally just decided she wanted to run a motel. Sheriff was made to be a sheriff. Lightning was made to be a race car, and when he can't do that anymore, he feels lost. And that's why it hits so deep on an adult level, growing up, figuring out how to deal with that. And his arrogance, his pride, is all about not wanting to let that go and not being humble enough to say, okay, I'm done. I'll move on to the next thing.
I think you're missing the important redeeming aspect of it, though, where his life isn't over just because he's not a race car anymore. He has to learn how to change what his own perceived identity is in a new season where he can't do what he used to be able to do. And I think it's about getting older and about replacing yourself with the next generation and being able to humble yourself to a point where you're like, yeah, I can't do this anymore. And it's the next person's turn. And my new identity, or not my new identity, but my new purpose in life is to train up this next generation. And also, side note, as someone with a degree in engineering, I really appreciate the new car style and how they actually design them to look younger. There's just the subtle differences with the sharper edges. I'm like, yes, because like they show age with developed technology, and that is just so cool.
Yeah, for sure. And it's kind of it's not like all race cars look like that or will look like that. It just insinuates the progression and the newness. Yeah, you're right, though. It's about purpose, finding your new purpose, glorious purpose, if you will, if you want to connect Loki to this. And I think additionally, it's putting Lightning on the other side of his arc, obviously, but being a mentor now. It's kind of not so subtle that he's training Cruz indirectly by making her go with him everywhere. And the parallels between him and Doc are pretty obvious by the end of the movie. But that shows, especially right in the middle, when Smokey is talking to Lightning. And Lightning was like, man, I wish I could have seen Doc happy. And Smokey says, come with me. Look at this wall of letters that Doc has written about you.
It was so good.
He was so happiest when he was mentoring you because you made him feel alive again. That is so beautiful, and I love that. And Lightning doesn't really realize that. That could be a Cars 4 where he's training Cruz.
Let it die at a trilogy. I think it's a good wrap-up.
You're right. I do think that they should stop at 3. But, they made Toy Story 4. They're making Toy Story 5. They're making other sequels. I will be sad when Cars 4 releases. But
I just love how they wrap it up and it comes full circle. And it's like, oh, yeah,
yes,
it's all come together.
Oh, yeah, it's all coming together.
I forgot that he had the impression.
Okay, I want to pitch this fan theory to you. And you probably didn't notice it because it's not super obvious. No attention is drawn to it. First off, Mater is not in the movie a lot. But when he is, he does not have a dent on his left side. So either this happens before Cars 2 which doesn't make any sense because Lightning is in his prime in Cars 2, or Cars 2 never canonically happened.
You would love that, wouldn't you?
Or the animators forgot to put a dent on it. But with how detail-oriented Pixar is with every single piece of what they model and animate, how could they forget something like that? I do still think that Cars 3 suffers from the who is the main character a little bit, not as much as Cars 2. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. I only do say that in comparing the promotion of Cars 2 to the actual movie and how Lightning was front and center and he was kind of a side character. But with Cars 3, you're supposed to be on Lightning's side. He's supposed to be the protagonist. And then it really seems like you're supposed to feel for Cruz at the end. I still think it's Lightning's movie. It's kind of one of those handoff movies where if they make a fourth one, it would probably be about Cruz.
I don't think there's a need for a main character in this episode or in that movie. Because I think of other movies like The Godfather. It doesn't feel like there's necessarily a main character in there you could argue that the main character switches halfway through the film. But I think the idea of Cars 3 is that he's finally coming to a realization, Lightning McQueen is, that it's not all about him. And that's kind of what the whole movie is, because it's not about any one specific person. It's about living life, pouring into the next generation, or finding more meaning to life than just what you feel you are made for. And I think making it so that there's no main character can kind of emphasize that point just a little bit more, because it's not dialed in on any specific person. It's like a broad scope. It's like, look at this big picture. There's more people here. We aren't detailed on any person because everybody is in this world.
I still don't think that Cruz should be the main character, only because they didn't make her likable enough. She's very annoying in the first half of the movie, and Ellie said that without any prompting.
Oh my gosh, yeah, her voice drove me crazy.
But also, they pull the switch on, or they flip the switch on you in the middle, which I actually thought that scene alone was really heartfelt, where she was talking about how she always looked up to Lightning. She apparently was made to look like, or was made to be a race car, like that's kind of her car build, but then she's put as a trainer, and that's her mini story arc. Like, it doesn't just have to be the main characters who go through a story arc, and she is close enough to a main character, but she's also discovering who she is because she was put as a trainer instead of a racer. And she said, I wanted to do all of that because of you, because I looked up to you, Lightning. And Lightning just yelled at her for being a klutz. And that scene alone was really good. But I think it didn't hit as hard because it wasn't really proven why you're supposed to like Cruz. She was very annoying.
I think that was the point where it was supposed to turn around, where you're like, oh my gosh, this chick is annoying. And you're like, oh, she's just really, really driven because she's super passionate about becoming a racer.
Yeah, that's fair. I have some changes that I would make to Cars 3. Some good, some bad. I think that Jackson Storm should have been a new Chick Hicks. Just as arrogant, but this time he's actually better. Like, Chick was just kind of all hot and angry and never better. He still was a pretty average racer. Whereas Storm is a better racer objectively, but he should have been a little bit more brash, I think. All of his driving moves are supposed to be calculated, but I think it would have been great to have a comparison, like a melt between Chick Hicks and Lightning, and that is Jackson Storm. This is one alternate ending that I'm going to propose. Imagine he comes in for his last pit stop and says, no tires, just gas. And Lightning goes,
that would be pretty fun.
And then, like, the drag race to the finish line, he pops a tire and loses. That would be full circle.
Yes, and then he's training Cruz to learn from his mistakes. But then, that would be so good. I see that. Okay. Yep.
Yeah. He should have done something stupid and underestimated Cruz rather than her just doing something automatically better.
I think he did underestimate her.
He did. You're right. I'm saying instead of underestimating her, he should have done something stupid and brash that lost him the race. It's been established that he is the fastest car. And I think when you think about the physics, yes, he's pushing all of his weight into the wall, and then when she moves, he hits the wall. But I don't think she's gaining any speed as she's going over him, which is cool. I admit that scene is great. But I don't think that physics causes her to actually win.
So now you care about physics.
Yeah.
Okay, then we can go crazy into the physics of the Cars movies.
No. That's my point, is that it's been established that Storm has more speed, and it should have been more obvious of why she won, rather than just doing a sick move and juking him out. Broke his ankles. I think it should have been more obvious that he is prone to mistakes because he's a rookie. And just, he acts a little bit like Chick Hicks. He's all up in people's faces. I also think the rule of swapping out drivers is stupid. And I'll get to another alternate ending in a second. But if that's the established rule in their NASCAR, in their Piston Cup, then it's just a relay race. It's just a relay that you run 295 laps, and then you get your freshest car with the new paint job, same number, out on the track. And it's a little bit different kind of when you think about our real world, when I don't know if you can have the same racer, because there's not actually effort being put into, or physical effort being put into NASCAR driving. It's just all mental and making sure you can keep your car up at the front of the pack and not lagging behind a lap.
I've never driven a race car. It might be physical. There is inertia involved.
They have to like train their necks and stuff.
Yes, I'm saying that it's not the same strain.
And their feet. I think that's F1
Crutches.
driving, actually. I don't know about NASCAR. I know nothing about
different.
NASCAR.
It's very different because in the Cars universe, it's like they're running. That is what it's supposed to be. And just tagging somebody out because of...
They're not out of breath, though.
No, they're not. I don't know. Again, it's not really how it works. But like you see when they're trying to go faster, like Lightning's looking like he's pooping because he's trying to go faster. Yeah, it's not a relay. Either Lightning should be disqualified because he didn't finish the race, or he shouldn't get the credit. Like at the very end, it says, "Why is Lightning's name up there?" Oh, because you started the race and Cruz finished it and she won. That's, I think, was very lazy to get a everybody wins scenario. All the protagonists, all the good guys win. It doesn't make sense, and it doesn't justify the cool moment. I think it's not worth it.
I saw just the ending right after it came out on Disney Plus, and that's when I dubbed it a bad movie because I didn't really like that either. I just watched that final race and I was like, that was weird, and I was like, so it's basically just like the first movie, but now there's a new chick in there. But also, I don't know why I keep saying chick. I never say that. I think it's because you keep saying Chick Hicks, and now it's in my head. But I think, yeah, I don't know. There's more to it, and I take it all back. When I originally said, I was like, I don't know if I like Cars 3 because it looks like it's just the same thing over again. But I'm like, no, it's good. It's very wholesome. So
it's an unsatisfying ending, like you were saying. Like the meat of Cars 3, it's great, but then it just leaves you with a kind of like a weird aftertaste. Like, really? That's how it ends? Just because, again, it doesn't feel right that she should have finished the race. And it had a callback to earlier in the movie where she jumps over what's his face. And that was cool, but it still just doesn't make sense having them switch out halfway through the race. It really doesn't. And that's what just loses a lot of points for the movie in my book. Just because I'm not a fan of that ending. And that's like the most pivotal point. That is the climax. And they didn't get the climax correct. And that's tough.
Yeah. I have a special treat. First, to intro this, remember the scene where Lightning is still recovering or finishing recovering, and he's kind of depressed, and he's like, or Sally hypes him up, and he's like, yeah, I say when I'm done, or whatever. That's kind of he says that throughout the movie. But with that in mind, we're going to watch an official Cars 3 alternate ending. This is an animatic, which is made way before the animation is even started. It's animated storyboards that show you how this shot is going to look when we cut, what the character is doing. It's essential for animation. And they also voice over it to give you kind of a sense of the tone of the characters, to get what voice expressions they're making and all that. And I don't know how this was released, but I want to watch this in its entirety and hear your guys' thoughts about how this would have gone.
There he is. Hey, Sterling. Sorry about the last minute arrival, but you are not gonna believe these last few days. It worked. All of it. Getting my tires dirty, old school training. This one race you gave me today.
It's not gonna happen.
Wait, what? What'd you say?
I'm not letting you race.
That's so much better than what we got.
Yeah. I see the one holdup for why they probably didn't pick it is that left Cruz under the supervision of the other, what's his name? Sterling.
Sterling.
And we just don't like him. He wasn't even in this storyline.
But he is her boss. Like, even in the training center, he's always been her boss. And he still tries to be her boss in the movie that we got by saying, Cruz, you get back to the training center, blah, blah, blah. I know that there are legitimate gripes for why that wasn't why that wasn't the ending. But I think it's an amazing, way better ending, I would say, than what we got, because I'm jealous that there wasn't such a direct parallel to Doc. Even a purpose for him getting a new paint job. Like, in the movie that we got, it was just a tribute, which is fine. but having it play a role in why his play a role in his downfall, where Sterling says you're done. And that was the point of Doc's arc, is like they told him when he was done. He didn't get to say when he was done. And that's what lightning, shoot, my light just died. Oh no, everything's falling apart.
Me too.
I know.
Me too.
Oh my gosh. We'll have to go one light less. It has a lot more purpose. It's not meant to be antagonizing to Cruz, but I feel like they could have rewritten the rest of her story beforehand to kind of fit with that. And maybe they tie at the end. Maybe that would be a cool callback to Cars 1, where they have a two-way tie and they're just happy that they tied so that they didn't have to beat each other. Now that still is playing to the everyone's a winner mentality. Yeah. But I think that this alternative ending means so much more. It means so much more to the story and Lightning's arc and feeling down. You know, I think some of the best third acts are when you feel down right away and going into the third act before pick me up to give you that energy into it. And then the rest of the race would have been probably amazing as well. And it's the tough part of seeing how Sterling is kind of the antagonist, being all business minded instead of understanding what the people under him want and don't want. I think it's great. I think that one would have been a lot better, but it didn't happen, and now we can just dream. I do have one more thought besides that to finish it off. I have this last thought, but it's not so much a final bookend. It's just one last thing that I noticed. Mater's relationship with Lightning in this last movie. It's very wholesome. It's not a lot, but when Lightning is feeling it, and he calls Mater, and Mater's like, well, just tell me what's going on, and I'll just sit here and listen. That was like, aww. It's been said that Mater is like a dog only because he's loyal. And he's just always there. That's a friendship that I think was missed completely. Not completely missed because they make up at the end of Cars 2, but that's shown in Cars 1, showing them becoming friends and growing and developing, and how Mater was like, but I didn't get to say goodbye. And even Lightning feels that he didn't get to say goodbye. He just didn't say it as goofily. And maybe that could have been something they explore in Cars 2, where they're like, well, our relationship is supposed to be this brotherhood of just being goofy. And they had that in the beginning, but then they had that torn and flexed a little bit in the middle where Lightning gets mad at him. That could have been a part of the story too, of reconciliation and how friends have fights, but it just happened to be a moment. And I think all of the other movies have flair, and Cars 2 has spectacle. Like Cars 2 looks good and is fun and is amazing, whereas I think the other two have a little bit more meat to it and is, again, Josh likes the food metaphors.
I just like food.
I feel a lot more watching Cars 1 and 3 than I do Cars 2.
Big time, yeah.
Bars. No, but I enjoyed every second of Cars 2. Every second.
It bugs me that that's when you watch to get caught up on and get ready for this episode.
All right, thank you for listening to the One Eyed Film Podcast. The reverse Deacon.
I always have Roman and Deacon to rely on for a hot take and a correction or something, and that's why we love them. That's why I like you, Josh, because you bring wrong ideas.
I'm full of hot takes. I fully understand that I breed discourse, which Proverbs talked against it.
True. Maybe that's why you're all my co-hosts. Is either you disagree with me. Actually, no, that's probably in one way or another you disagree with me. Zach doesn't agree with me on a lot of Daredevil and Spider-Man stuff. You disagree with me on Cars. I probably disagree with Deacon and Roman about Lord of the Rings and Hobbit. Everyone disagrees with me on something.
Yeah.
But you still like me. Okay.
Amen.
Like I said, I hope there are more deep burns had in Discord when we talk about this episode. I am excited to hear everyone's thoughts about it. And again, I don't know if you paused the episode to go watch the alternate ending, but I hope you did. If you didn't, go watch that. All of the links of videos that I referenced and even some video essays, which I really like video essays, will be in the description. Make sure to join our Instagram and Facebook. Don't follow Facebook. It's just the same stuff you get on Instagram and YouTube and Discord and all the other stuff that is in the description. Buy some merch. Until next week, know that you're loved. God bless.
Peace out, brethren.
Bye.
Yeah, there it is.
Legit.